that, what is the restoring class? What is it about? What are we learning? It really is about, it's learning polyvagal theory, it's learning evolutionary biology. It's effectively providing you with a roadmap for understanding what the kinds of experiences you've been having your entire life, the places you get stuck. It really is a paradigm shifting, changes your orientation to yourself and everyone in the world kind of an education that's like, oh, that's why this is happening. That's why this. And so when I say roadmap, it's like we can't know where we're going or how to get there until we really, really understand how and why it's happening. And to really, again, this is where it becomes individualized. I can give you the biology, I can give you these explanations and the polyvagal learning. And then we spend a lot of time with specific ways of noticing how these things are appearing in our lives, in our bodies, in our relationships, in our patterns in our lives. And so then we can, once we really, really know where are we, it's, coming back to that roadmap, like an orientation to where we are, we can begin to think about changes. So it's kind of like the first 2 months are a lot of that learning and orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just start to get into the way it'll be structured now. We'll just start to get into applying, like trying to create some of those neuroplastic changes in an active way. So as opposed to the passive neural exercises from the SSP, we'll be teaching you active neural exercises in this class. And then, as you said, as Christine said, you'll have an opportunity to really integrate what you've learned, to keep practicing. When it's challenging, you have peers that you can work with to figure out how to work with it and to celebrate triumphs as well. And we learn from each other. It's a really excellent way of, again, having this 3 months where the peers are mainly interacting with themselves. When you teach something or try to explain something or understand something, hearing it from someone else, having someone else offering feedback, working together on it really helps to reinforce the learning for ourselves. And then again, we'll pick up with some more of that learning, really creating some more, integrating those practices and learning some new things to develop the new pathways in our bodies. And then the end of it is focused a lot on skillful, aware connection to ourselves and to other people. That really helps to deeply reinforce being safe in relationship to ourselves and other people. As we've said, that is the foundation of creating a healthy life for ourselves, including physiologic health. So, and then there'll be more opportunity for connection and integration there. So that is what the class primarily is. And it's a really robust education. The connection piece, we keep saying that feeling safe in relationship to others is the work, and that we work really hard to create a container of safety for people to develop that with one another in their peer group. And also, you will find that you feel like there's a new language that you have for yourself for understanding your experience, and you'd like to be able to talk about it with other people. And for a while, you will not have likely a spouse or a partner or friends or whatever to talk about it with. But so it becomes extremely helpful to have peers that you can relate to your experience in this way to really make it come alive for you in your life and in your body. How do I do?
Thank you, I'd like to say, as somebody who has taken this class at the inception, but more recently as well, I just participated in a class. And, it's such a life-changing experience to go through it, even for somebody like me who has so much knowledge about it. Knowledge, that's different. Really learning to apply the wisdom of the polyvagal theory to my own body and my own interactions. Michaela keeps saying with ourselves and others. Mick, I would love it if you would give just a little tiny bit of insight into the importance of the relationship with ourselves, because I think that that's something that is not well understood, certainly not talked about a lot. And really the way that our biology depends on us, treating ourselves the way we need to be treated is pretty profound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, now I'm choked up a little bit. It's very moving that you had that experience in the class, and being able to witness it as your friend and colleague has really been deeply moving to me. And you were my most challenging member.
As you were mine before OCC, Mick, so you're even now.
No, but genuinely challenging in a way that has enriched the offering.
Yeah.
Actually, like questions and ways that we could work to improve and enhance and nurture the class for people. So thank you. But I think I'm grateful you actually said that, because I think polyvagal theory does really focus on the connection that you have with other people. And yes, that's important. And we did, as we've been saying, that initial connection of being in a dyad with the caregiver and the infant is this is the biology that we're working with. And it is critically important. For all of us in our Western culture, there has been some challenge in those early developmental pathways where we don't always feel like our needs will be met and that we will be responded to. And part of what has happened, and just as a culture, it's very easy to see that we're almost rewarded for overriding our own body's signals, working longer than we're really should, working later than we really should in the winter when it's like we're not moving with the seasons anymore, ignoring the pain that we're feeling, overriding whatever signals we're having, forcing ourselves to show up to a live thing when our anxiety is saying don't do it. But but genuinely, there's a way that from what you will learn in the class is that from very, very early on, we've actually been conditioned to abandon ourselves in some way to stay in connection with the adult caregiver, even the really well-meaning adult caregiver. And that we end up learning that, and that pattern gets reinforced throughout our lives. And most of us are not particularly tuned into our bodies, even if our bodies are constantly giving us signals of pain or things that we're responding to on that level. It's a different kind of attunement that you learn in the class. That attunement is survival, and that our healing really necessitates that before we can even really be a safe person to be in relationship with, that we need to be helping to let the autonomic nervous system know that we are listening, that it doesn't need to escalate its signals anymore to get our attention. That part of why we are in the place that we're in with the illness or the symptoms or the pain or the anxiety and depression or discomfort that we're in is our system saying, please pay attention on a different level. We'll help you understand what it's really wanting. But that it is this development of really being attuned to ourselves in a very different way that actually creates safety for us to navigate any of the complexities that we have in our lives, especially with other people. And if I may, like in general, how it was supposed to be is that with really adequate co-regulation as an infant, we learn how to self-regulate. Most of us did not get enough, so we did not learn how to self-regulate well enough. We've come up with a whole assortment of adaptive ways, including auto-regulation, which is almost like I'm going to numb my way through this. I'll work until I'm ready to drop. I'll doom scroll on Facebook, for hours on end. I'll drink or eat or shop or whatever the thing is that's taking us out of our body, away from our body's signals and experiences. That's auto-regulation. But what we actually really need to do now that we're adults is to go back and really learn how to self-regulate. Part of that does involve co-regulation with other people, but learning how to self-regulate. So it's kind of this process of learning how to not manage our safety outside of ourselves by controlling circumstances and people and trying pretty, like even in ancient wisdom traditions, it's like trying to focus on creating safety here instead of trying to make safety happen out there. And so it's kind of that now we need to get away from codependency and into independence and then interdependence. It's supposed to be interdependence, but we kind of have to move through away from codependence and seeing those patterns truly for what they are, that we can then get into safe independence and then very safely into interdependence. I wasn't planning on answering that question today. I hope that helps to clarify for people who are hearing it and it doesn't just feel, but this is part of what we end up learning in class. it's life-saving and life-changing.
Yeah. And I help facilitate it, but I've also been participating and learning myself in the different iterations of restoring. And it is such a shift and such a powerful move to, instead of that part of us, that little young part of us that is still wanting or grasping, or, I'm the crying baby. Is someone going to be there for me? To learn how to really be there for yourself and to show up and be, the loving mama to me, to little me that still has some wounds from the past, but also adult me now and what I'm experiencing now. And it is, like Jess said, it's such a life-changing and life-giving experience that my health has benefited, but just how I feel and how I feel in my body and my skin and in my relationships. It's just such a huge shift. It's hard to articulate, but it's a really powerful thing. And so we're honoring like the time and the space to bring that to people and to get everyone started, because it is something, this neuroplastic change and this learning that you'll take beyond restoring and that you'll take beyond your time here with OCC.
And if I may,
I think, yeah.
I think it's helpful to say, especially since I took us through like codependence, independence, interdependence as a framing, but how, there is this tension between, we do need other people. And in fact, the deeper layers of healing that you were describing, Christine, requires that we feel safe and held by other people. And yet, part of what we need to develop, and that we will support you in developing, is feeling safe enough to even ask for it. Right? It's like could be, and we do this for each other. So I'm speaking about how the ways that we show up for each other in this beautiful way, and how that is such a huge part of this deepening of our own healing and the ability to move through some of our all the old messaging, old patterns from other times, and to learn something new. It's necessary to have each other, just to use us as an example, but to have people who we really feel safe to ask for that kind of support from. But again, there's a process that needs to happen to even be able to do that safely. So I want to name that, because I think there's a way that's like, I don't have people, or I don't feel that safe, or the last thing when I'm feeling needy, used to be my way was, you won't hear from me for like 3 months. Like, I'm going away over here into this corner to like attend to myself, because when I'm actually needing someone the most, I feel the most vulnerable, that if I were to reach for it, it won't be there. And it feels like I might die. So just to give that is the process that partly the class is walking us through. And of course the SSP is giving us a foundation to navigate that in the dark, basically.
And I want to name too that in the class there, Michaela and I are in the class, there's the peers, so we're doing this together. And in the individual appointments with Michaela is what we call our mind-body appointments, is this opportunity to take the restoring learning and then really with Michaela look at, okay, particularly for me and my situation and what's coming up for me and on all of that, so that with that connection with Michaela and Michaela's expertise to really sort of home in even more and perhaps specify the practices, add to some practices, or just enhance it, deepen it, make it that much more accessible for you. And it's really building off of restoring in that way. So even though it's a separate, line item or like aspect of our program, it really dovetails so beautifully with restoring and the learning in restoring, that I wanted to kind of mention it briefly now. And then I want to, so if Mick wants to say a little bit more about that first, and then to have Jess say, wait, how is all of this functional medicine? And just kind of, turn us back again that yes, all of this autonomic nervous system, regulation, everything Michaela just described in restoring, this is all functional medicine. But first, is there just a couple more things for the mind-body appointments it feels important to clarify?
I mean, this is very, very unique to every individual and where they happen to be at any given time. These can be spaced out. They can all happen toward the end if you feel like you're staying with the class and that you're able to integrate things, in real time and you don't feel like you need the support. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Truly, the gamut could happen in a mind-body visit. It could be like, help me to understand this concept that I don't really understand, or how does this apply specifically in my life situation that I'm experiencing right now, or like I'm completely stuck. I don't even know. We might do body scan. There are I have a lot of tools. If you've read my bio, like I am trained in a lot of different modalities to try and get access to that which is unconscious in a safe way. But it could also just be support around this is the dynamic that I'm having with my partner right now. And how do I navigate this situation? Or, this is what's happening in my health. Anything is possible. So like specific questions, as you invited before, if somebody's curious, what are some of the things that we might do in a mind body? We'd be happy to get into more details with that. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
I think, Mick, one way that I would phrase it is that you kind of help people where their blinders are.
Right.
And me having done this restoring work, again, the places where we encounter, it could feel like a hurdle, it could feel like a roadblock, it could feel like that's impossible for me, I can't do that. Often there is something that the nervous system is protecting us from knowing, for very good reasons. There's biological reasons why. And so Mick just mentioned, like, it could feel like you're dying. But you kind of were real quiet right then, Mick. So I wanted to repeat it. That when she used to go away for 3 months because she felt needy, it felt like if she reached for the help and it wasn't there, she would die. And so it was too vulnerable to ask. And that's a very common scenario, I think, really probably for even males and females in our culture. I know definitely for females it is. But there are other ways. So in other words, like that type of situation, Michaela can really artfully help anyone very safely and very carefully get in and see why it feels like. So she says, it feels like you're going to die because the nervous system says you're going to die if you don't get this care in infancy. And you could die if you don't get the care in infancy. That's for real. But when I say I can't do that exercise, Michaela can then help carefully navigate through to figure out what is the place that feels like I'm going to die if I were to go there. Why is my nervous system not letting me see or know something? And I just am like, I can't do it. That's not accessible to me. So that's the type of thing. Like everyone has stuff that is, nobody doesn't need mind body sessions. In other words, they're like a treasure gift, phenomenal opportunity to dig into your own little crevices, whatever they may be.
Thank you. I will say that one of the things that I think I'd like to say, this is not a psychological phenomenon at all. This is a physiologic phenomenon. We're talking about the dorsal vagal circuitry, which is it's conservation, it's freeze, it's numbing, it's dissociative, it's keeping something unconscious. It is protecting us from too much. What the too much is could be any number of things, including way too much energy, given the energy that the body has. But it could be it's too much something that the system has deemed it's not going to be safe to feel all of this or to know all of this or to have this come up and out. And the body's actually right, by the way. So I just want to say, like, the body's right about that. If all of the stored trauma that any of us have in our bodies came up at once, it would be too much. It would in fact be too much. So our job is like inviting the conversation, inviting a little, can I feel it just for 10 seconds and then like come back. It's developing a process for being able to eventually feel safe enough and for the individual to feel a sense of agency and empowerment for being a partner in that process, that you can control that and you can know when it feels like too much and know how to come back. In other words, a lot of us are kind of just feel like when you don't know what the biology is doing or why, we're pretty helpless to it. Like it's kind of just doing things that we're like along for the ride. Part of our process is helping to explain it, give you some context for relating to it in a safe feeling way, and then practicing new experiences that, again, Jess is saying, may feel like life threat because they were at a different point in our history. And so that is still in our bodies. And until we have an opportunity to try things in a small enough way to feel safe to the system, then the body maintains the conclusion that it, whatever it was in the past, threatening, if saying no to a parent meant that you were going to be rejected or ostracized or yelled at, the experience in the body is life threat. So
Exactly.
And so it may be hard to say no to a boss or something.
when you attempt to do that in the present day, the feeling, you may intellectually, you're like, what is my problem? Like, this is not that big of a deal. I just, you may even really feel that way. I want to set a boundary. I want to say no. I want to, whatever the thing is, right? But when you would go to do it, it's like sometimes it gets like frozen or stuck in your throat, or just absolutely not. Or maybe all of a sudden extreme fatigue overwhelms you, or you're like dizzy and out of sorts all of a sudden. These are all indicators that your system is saying, this was definitely a huge threat. It was a huge problem in the past. The way to stay safe is to stay silent or small or invisible or please and appease. Use your social engagement system to like help this person by like being smiley and meet all of their needs, while inside you're feeling like very threatened, right? There's lots of different, we are a far afield from where we were planning on going with this.
Yes, but let me say why it's critical. Again, I'm aware that it sounds like we're talking about psychology. It sounds like we're talking about trauma treatment. In fact, what we're talking about is the autonomic nervous system. And these are the relational breaches in safety in infancy and early childhood that set up the patterns of our biology that exist today. So, in other words, if I get asked to do something and my no gets caught in my throat because of an experience that I don't remember, and we're not talking about processing your traumas one by one here. That's not what happens. The point is, we can actually use our prefrontal cortex, our 20% of nervous system fibers that we do have control over, once you learn this, once you have the safety. And that's why the whole process exists with us, that then you can use those fibers to discern, oh, this no caught in my throat was adaptive at some point. We know it was. Great. I'm glad for that. Also, my physiology is offline when my no is stuck in my throat.
Right.
And so learning to be able to say the no today, that I am safe enough to say no. As a matter of fact, I'm safer if I say no, because now I'm not overextending myself. I'm not, taxing myself beyond what I should be. Probably if you want to say no, you should say no. And also, that level of safety allows your organ systems to turn on and run effectively and allow resolution of inflammation and all of the healthy biology that you're seeking. And so that's why restoring class is functional medicine. It doesn't always feel like it minute to minute, but I am here behind the scenes to say that people who come to us with some version of chronic illness, chronic distress, have had their autonomic nervous systems functioning largely in a state of protection to save their lives. Like, we're grateful for all that their nervous systems have done. And also, it is now getting, it's far maladaptive, and the body is suffering for a lack of opportunity to be in this health, growth, and restoration pattern consistent with ventral vagal activity. So we know that each person seeking our care is in a survival pattern. Some people are more dominant in dorsal, some people are more dominant in sympathetic, but everybody's going between the two. And in order to bring back online the very root cause of disease, allow the organs to function, allow the immune system to work the way it's supposed to work, allow the healing to happen, you've got to access neuroregulation of the organs, which means you've got to access the ventral vagal fibers. And so the restoring class is part of our functional medicine practice because it is how you access health.
Right. Well said. If I may, the one thing I just wanted to add is that going back to the saying no as a beautiful example, the path to safety isn't saying no. Creating a path of safety is the path to being able to say no, which is reinforcing safety. In other words, it's not about changing the behaviors. It's about changing what's preventing you from organically feeling safe enough to execute the behavior. That's the treatment. That's the treatment.
And just to say, once, you know, for those like being in this work for a while, I'm now having the experience of having something and say, oh, yeah, no, blah, 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 and later going, wow, that was easy. There was no issue. Before it would be, oh my God, you know, whatever, you know, for this no example, or, you know, oh, I didn't have a huge rush of heat and panic through my body and my heart racing, my stomach clenching because I got this weird text. It was like, oh, that's weird. So biologically, my body, because I'm experiencing safety and I can interpret something through this lens of safety, I'm not having the survival physiology and the, you know, the corticotropin releasing factor and the mast cells degranulating and my, you know, my cortisol level, adrenaline, da, 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 like all that just didn't happen because I was like, ah. And so that's the kind of shift that we're talking about, where it's like when the rewiring happens, it's like literally these experiences just like feel different in the body. And biologically, then I'm set up for, I was still in healing and repair. Oh, okay. Da, 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 da. Right. And it's not because I was sort of forcing a new behavior on top of what I was actually feeling in my body.
Right.
Because I was feeling different in my body, my behavior was like, oh, or no. So that's just to say, like, that's sort of the like downstream. That's where we're helping people to get so that they're having neuroregulation. You're having neuroregulation of your organs and your body's able to just keep doing the healing and repairing. And this is all the functional medicine piece of helping you feel better, helping your body heal.
Well, and I mentioned that it's at the very end of class that we really get into the relationship piece, like the relationship with ourselves, and then deeper skillfulness around being in relationship with other people. But I think it's wise to even say, a lot of times what happens is we identify patterns, ways that we're behaving that we don't really love. We want to be able to say no. We want to be able to set boundaries, but we do it before the safety is in place. We're usually making a mess. Maybe we overcorrect and we come in and we're really kind of curt and rude or angry or, you know, critical, or, you know what I mean? We aren't able to do it well yet, because we don't even know we're still holding all of this in our bodies. That is about a time that isn't necessarily, it probably is only a little bit about you and this other person, and a lot about what you're holding in your body from a point in your development for that you, like you said, Jessica, you don't even remember. You wouldn't possibly, it's pre-verbal anyway. But regardless, like, so just to say, there's a very specific, skillful way of navigating these types of things. And a lot of it we cover in class, and a lot of it we work on one-on-one together. And I do want to just mention, just so that credit is due, Allie's been part of all of our classes. We thank you, Allie. We're actually transitioning Allie away from some of that part to focus on some other things. And Allie is actually in training as a mind-body provider as well. So we're really